Hey guys, what's up? Hope everyone's having a great day, and I hope you're well out in the world. Okay, we're still looking at Amby Pants on the stand in the UK, which she was only a witness for when Johnny Depp took NGN and NGN Wootton to task for calling him a wife popper. Now, where we left off was Miss Laws, who was one of Depp's attorneys in the UK trial, was going through all the incidences and saying, you're just lying. You're just making this up. And Amber's like, no, I'm not. I'm telling the truth. So really, it was just a back and forth of you're lying. And Amber's like, no, I'm telling the truth. So where we left off was that they were going into private. So Amber could accuse Depp of horrendous things behind closed doors that no one would ever find out about it because it's not in the transcript. But we got to find out about it, and man, oh man, it made her even worse. It made her even worse of a liar than what we already thought she was. So we're going to continue on. So what happened was they went into private, then they brought on Josh Drew and then Melanie and Inglessis. They brought in a couple more people, and then Amber is going to end out the last round of today's proceedings. So this is where we're starting here is Amber recalled for cross-examination by Miss Laws. So this is where we're starting off. Miss Laws, now I'm going to just ask you about the incident at Hicksville now, all right? My lord, I hope I have given an incident number for that. I'm not going to encroach on any matters that I should not. It is incident 3. I'm just going to give you the opportunity to agree or disagree with what I'm suggesting to you really happened the night that you stayed at the Hicksville, all right? Amber, all right. Miss Laws, that night you and Mr. Depp had a row together in private. I think with what you would agree. Amber, no. Miss Laws, no. All right. You were calling him names? Amber, no. Getting very agitated. Amber, no, not at all. Miss Laws, he lost his temper with the light in the bathroom. He was so frustrated. Amber, it was not in the bathroom. He smashed a wall light, though, did he not? Amber, yes, he did. Miss Laws, but he did not direct his frustration towards you, did he? Amber, no, it was primarily at me. Miss Laws, moving on then, there was just one point in the restraining order, just to come back to a short point. On the restraining order, we have had the footage played to you of May 27th yesterday. There are 2 questions that I want to ask. There is no limitation whatsoever upon you or your lawyers as to how much detail is in the application, is there? Amber, I am not sure. Let me rephrase the question. You were not limited in any documents you served on the court as to what you could or could not say, were you? Amber, that is just not true. I was told we had to keep it brief, but I'm not a lawyer, so I was just going off my attorney's advice. So that's just not true, is it? And Justice, I think you've already told me that you were told by your attorney to keep it brief, and you yourself have no personal knowledge of that. Amber, exactly. It was my first legal proceeding like that. And your last, hopefully. Miss Laws, there was absolutely no need whatsoever for you to actually turn up at the courthouse and attend for that appearance. It could all have been done on the papers, could it not? Amber, no, I don't think so. That is a lie, is it not, what you have just said? Amber, no, my attorney told me that I had to show up, so I did. Miss Laws, that's a lie as well, is it not? Amber, no, it is not. Miss Laws, my lord, can I go back to, and I hope we have the footage from Thanksgiving that I was not able to play earlier. Just need to find the transcript for you. This is the footage. So they're looking for the footage. Miss Laws, I'm going to play this and ask you to actually look at the screen, and then I'm going to ask you a question or 2 about it, all right? Amber, all right. So they play the footage of Thanksgiving incident. Can you confirm now which penthouse this is? Amber, penthouse 5. Miss Laws, penthouse 5. Thank you very much. Miss Laws, we can see it clearly on the screen, can we not? Amber, yes. Miss Laws, so do you accept that on the screen you can see Rocky Pennington? Amber, yes. You are just on the right-hand side. And Justice Nickel, just a minute. We can see Rocky, yes. Can we see you? Miss Laws, we can see you as well, can we not? Amber, I think I saw myself, yes. Miss Laws, you can see Mr. Depp just briefly in the corner. Amber, at the beginning? Miss Laws, yeah. Amber, yes, briefly. Miss Laws, you can see your father and Jack. Amber, yeah. And at one point, there is a woman with dark hair who comes in. Is that Aaron Broom? Amber, no, I don't think so. Miss Laws, who is that? Amber, it looked like a friend of John's named Pat, who was that look like, but it's very difficult to see. So this is a happy family event that we see on the video, is it not? Amber, why, yes, it is. So it's a Thanksgiving dinner for family and friends, is it not? Amber, yes. And there was no violence that day or evening at any stage, was there? Amber, no, that's untrue. The 2 are unrelated. Miss Laws, this, in fact, is after midnight. So it's after the photograph that I've shown you of you lying back next to Jack. This is timestamped after midnight. Amber, yes. Justice Nickel, just a minute. What was your response to that? Amber, yes. Ms. Law, so on your account, by that stage, Mr. Depp had already been violent once to you. Is that right? Amber, we just had a brief altercation at the top of the flight of the stairs. Ms. Laws, that's just a lie, is it not? Amber, no, but relative to other things, it was pretty minor. Ms. Laws, I want to play the other, which is only a few seconds, which we have already seen. I just ask one question in relation to that, please. Justice Nickel, this is the tape which we have got a transcript of at which page. So they're looking for the page. So they play the footage. Ms. Laws, we can see there that your father is chasing Jack. Amber, yes. Ms. Laws, and in fact, what I should have asked you earlier on in the other video, you can actually see Marilyn Manson and you can hear him on this one. Can you not? Amber, yes, I can. So we have heard that you have said on a number of occasions about what you say is the other side of Johnny, the other side, and you have described it as a monster. We do not have time to go over your evidence on that again. I am just going to ask you whether you agree or disagree. That is just a lie, is it not? Amber, no, Johnny used it himself. The words monster and savage are part of the vocabulary that you and your friends would use, are they not? Amber, no, Ms. Laws, this is actually coming from Johnny's friend in the transcript in front of you. Ms. Laws, in a joke, is it not? Amber, are you asking me if Marilyn Manson was joking? Ms. Laws, it sounded like a joke, did it not? Amber, it sounded like that to me. It makes me wonder if he was writing the apology text. What? It makes me wonder if he was writing the apology text. So Marilyn Manson was writing Johnny's apology text. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Okay. Oh, yoy. And Justice Mickle, just a minute. The question is, what sounded like a joke on the video? Ms. Laws, on the video, in those words, injustice. You are being asked, Ms. Heard, about the video and whether on the video the words savage or monster sound like a joke. Do you agree or disagree? Amber, yes. Ms. Laws, we're having Mr. Manson saying, he's a monster, he's scaring me, a monster, and then you're a savage. You would say it's a joke. I'm just going to ask again. Justice Nichols, she said it was a joke on the video. Ms. Laws, I'm going to ask again. These are the sorts of words that you and your friends would use in jest. It's a common vocabulary between you, is it not? Amber, no, this is Johnny and his friends. Ms. Laws, I think your father was as well, was he not? Amber, I do not know what my father said. Ms. Laws, joining in on the joke, is he not? Amber, he sounds as if he's joking with them. I do not know what words he uses. If I can move to the Bahamas incident, which is an incident that you relate involving Tara Roberts and her partner, all right, so a different incident than that was what was aired earlier, but I think I have asked you a little bit about it. I'm not going to encroach on anything private. So they're looking for the file. Ms. Laws, I'm not going to take you to a document just yet, but you have given an account and evidence of an incident whereby Tara Roberts' partner had to, in effect, take Mr. Depp away from you. Is that what you're saying? Amber, I believe my recollection is that towards the end of that attack, Johnny only had me by the hair and there was a bit of a scuffle trying to free myself from his grasp. And then they both approached us. I think at the same time, and it's my recollection that Tara leaned towards me and CJ, her partner, leaned more towards Johnny and put his hands on Johnny's chest or upper shoulders, and that we had about 2 feet of separation for a moment. I will come to your account in a moment. Can I ask you to go file 2, please? Amber, it's out. They're looking for it. Okay, so question, Ms. Laws. Okay, so they're looking at the statement of Tara Roberts, which she gave a statement to and which was not challenged. So let us have a look at paragraph 10. During the evening of December 29th, 2015, Johnny drove to the office alone in his John Deere Gator. He had said he just needed to get away from Amber. Shortly afterwards, Amber showed up to the office. Amber started pleading with him to come back to the house, and at that point, I walked out of the office. A few minutes later, I heard this vehicle start and I stepped aside. Amber was standing in front of the vehicle, screaming at him and apparently not letting him get away by blocking his path. Then she climbed into the vehicle. He drove her back to their house. I got in my golf cart and went to the cafe, which is a short distance from the house. I called Christy Dombrowski, Johnny's sister, as I was unaware for how this would go. While I could not hear what caused the fight, Amber repeatedly berated him with increasing ferocity. She was insulting him, calling him names, and in the middle of this onslaught, I heard her specifically say, "Your career is over. No one is going to hire you. You're washed up, fat. You will die a lonely man," and also screaming things that were incomprehensible. At some point, Johnny tried to leave again as they were now in the parking lot. He repeatedly asked for the keys for the vehicle, which she had taken out. She refused to give it back to him, and which we later found in the house. He was responding to her verbal attacks by saying, "Go away and just leave me alone." Amber's screaming and berating rose to a fever pitch, and Johnny continued to yell, "Go away, leave me alone." I asked Christy what I should do, and she said I should keep an eye on the situation as Amber's rage continued to escalate, and I described the scene to Christy. She said that I need to intervene and I should go to Johnny's assistance. I hung up and immediately ran to the parking lot. I saw Amber lunge at Johnny, clawing, tugging, and aggressively pulling him. He continued to stand there, yelling at her to stop and leave him alone. When he stepped back to leave, her onslaught would start again. During the entire incident, I never saw Johnny hit Amber or push her back, nor did he physically react to the attacks. She would calm down and hug and apologize. Then he would say he needs to leave, and it would start again. Finally, I stepped between them. She continued to reach for him, but maybe my presence stopped it. I walked into the cafe, and he laid on the couch, and that is when I saw that he now had a red swelling gash on the bridge of his nose. Amber, Johnny, then told me, had thrown a quart-sized can of lacquer thinner into Johnny's face, causing a gash. That is all true. That is all true, is it not? Every single word. Amber, there are few for correct words in there. No one is ever going to hire you. You're washed up and you will die. Those are correct. Justice Nickel, that is correct is something that you said to Mr. Depp. Amber, nope, it is correct in that what it said. That was what Johnny was saying to me. Johnny from about a year on. Oh, fuck, here we go. Here we go. Miss Law, oh, sorry, Injustice. Where was it been attributed to you? It was wrong that it was attributed to you, but it's right that it was those words that said were actually, they were said by Mr. Depp. Amber, yes, he continued to say them throughout and even throughout the divorce. He has continued to threaten my job. Also, I did throw a can of something. I am later told that it was mineral spirits I threw at Johnny's direction as I was running away from him. But I was running away from him. I had my back to him, so I did not know if I actually made contact with him. He's just threatening my life and SA'd me, so I was running as fast as I could. I did not pause to look at where it landed. Ms. Laws, what you have done in response to that statement where you were being accused of really serious violence is to concoct an account of violence by Mr. Depp where, yet again, you're defending yourself, are you not? Amber, I had to defend myself sometimes. It's just a lie, is it not, Miss Hart? Amber, no, of course not. Mr. Depp never assaulted you and has never, ever, ever assaulted you. Not just in the ways that you have described, but never assaulted you. It has always been you that starts the fights and the rows. And Justice Nickel, let us take these parts separately. It is true that Mr. Depp had never assaulted you. Amber, that is untrue. Injustice. Is it true that it has always been you who'd been the instigator in the violence? Amber, untrue. Saws. When I said fight, I was using the expression the way you have used it. I should have been clearer. You always started the row. So I'm going to talk about how you end up disagreeing. You always start the row. Amber, oh, you mean verbal disagreement? Saws. Yes, do you not? Amber, at times I can be guilty of having been the instigator of a verbal disagreement. I can never criticize Johnny's behavior or use or drinking, and sometimes I would express disagreement with his choices. It was seen as cruel and unacceptable by Johnny, who lived a life in which he never had to face that from anyone. Miss Laws, my lord, no further questions. Justice Nickel, now, Miss Wass, we have concluded Ms. Law's cross-examination. You're in a position to start the re-examination. Miss Wass, I can start this afternoon or I can start tomorrow. I'm in the court's hands. Injustice, well, it may be desirable to start now since we have a few minutes left. Miss Wass, certainly. So this Miss Wass, Sasha Wass, was for NGN and Dan Wootton. I'm going to repeat it. Dan Wootton never, ever, ever stepped foot in that courtroom for his own proceeding. He was a named defendant and he never stepped foot in there because he said in his own words, he sent Amber in on his behalf. Yeah, he's a real stand-up guy. Real stand-up. Yep. Anyway. So Miss Wass starts the questioning. Miss Heard, it has been suggested to you, do you want to put that file back? It has been suggested to you on behalf of Mr. Depp that you were somebody who abused controlled drugs. Not just occasionally, but more seriously. Do you understand? I understand. We know because it has been referred to in evidence, and the notes are in the bundles, that you saw Dr. Cowan for a period of time. Amber, yes, I did. Can you go to file 9? If you get the file itself, it should be in a file that begins with da, 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 da. They're all looking for files. Miss Wass, can I ask you this again? It has been documented. Did you start seeing Dr. Cowan as a result of recommendation by Dr. Kipper, who had been previously treating Mr. Depp? Amber, yes. I think you started seeing Dr. Cowan toward the end of August of 2014, so after the detox incident in the Bahamas. Amber, that's correct. Miss Wass, this is a document that is typed up as part of Dr. Cowan's notes. Do you understand? Amber, yes, I do. It says, referred to by Dr. David Kipper, patient seen on 1st of September 2014. Does that sound about right? Amber, it does. Amber was referred to me by Dr. Kipper for an individual psychotherapy. Kipper has been seeing her medically and thought some therapy would be helpful to Amber in terms of better managing stress. Can I ask you, did Dr. David Kipper ever treat you for any form of substance abuse? Amber, never. I never had any treatment for drugs or alcohol of any kind. Ms. Wass, abuse? Amber, abuse of any kind. Ms. Wass, the note of Dr. Cowan goes on. Amber is a working actor who presents as anxious and depressed. We're talking about September 1st, 2014. What do you say about that? Amber, I'm sure the date I probably seemed very anxious and depressed. It seems right. Ms. Wass, she is involved with another actor, Johnny Depp, and the relationship is challenging and volatile emotionally. Amber, yes. I want to ask you about what is written here about your background. Amber comes from a chaotic and unstructured home. Do you give Dr. Cowan that information? Amber, yes. Ms. Wass, is it true? Amber, that is correct. I will say, if I may, that probably I did not necessarily use those words to minimize that sort of thing, but it is true. And Justice Nickel, the thrust of them is true, is it? Ms. Wass, she has a younger sister who has moved to Los Angeles and whom she helps care for. Amber, that is correct. Ms. Wass, is this correct? Amber, yes. Ms. Wass, and that is Whitney, is it? Amber, that is Whitney. Both of Amber's parents have a history of drug abuse that is apparently still ongoing. Did you tell Dr. Cowan about that in 2014? Amber, why, yes, I did. Was that true? Amber, yes. And then I want to ask you about this. Amber also has a history of abusing drugs and alcohol. Did you tell Dr. Cowan that? Amber, I told him that I used whitey stuff recreationally a few times. Maybe tried a handful of times when I was 18 and saw that in itself was that a problem. Ms. Wass, you saw it was a problem or he saw it was a problem? Amber, I said it was because I would think using it all the time was a problem. That's what I said to him. Ms. Wass, in terms of alcohol, abusing alcohol, did you say that? Amber, I have never had an alcohol problem. I just said that when I stopped using any drugs, I said I also stopped drinking spirits because I did not want to have a problem considering my genetic history and my family and my familial background. I thought it was a recipe for disaster and I did not want to repeat the mistake for my parents. And Justice Nickel, you thought you should just do what with alcohol? Amber, I decided when I was 19 to abstain from all spirits and other forms of alcohol, including beer, because I did not, everything with the exception of red wine, which is something I had not had a history with ever. So that is not to make the mistake of my parents. I felt I had a genetic predisposition and I did not want to fall into the trap. Ms. Wass, the note carries on. Currently, she is clean and sober, although she stays drinking wine occasionally. Is that correct? Amber, that's correct. Then it says a little bit about your parents and your education and the like. If you flick over, do we see a series of handwritten notes with some typed notes in between? Amber, yes, I do. Which comprise of Dr. Cowan's notes. Can I ask you about this? When you had your sessions, because of each of the sessions is dated, would Dr. Cowan write notes in your presence? Amber, yes. Yes. So you saw him writing something down as you were talking to him? Amber, yes. Again, I hope I can take this fairly swiftly, and he asked you a number of quite personal questions. Amber, yes. But when each of the forms, you can see an example on 19, 24, 29, just reading those three examples halfway down, the form, this is the form that has your name, the date of all the appointment, cognitive process, body language, etc., all to be filled in. But in the middle, there's a section labeled substance abuse. Do you see that? Amber, yes, I do. On 26th of August, 2014, it says occasionally alcohol. Was that not correct? Amber, yes, I see that. Ms. Wass, again, we see on K222, substance abuse, none, in the middle of the page. Amber, yes. Ms. Wass, again, we see on K228, substance abuse, none. Amber, yes. And then on K229, what is written next to substance abuse, relating to something? And Justice Nickel, it is substance abuse. Substance use or substance abuse? Ms. Wass, use, my fault. It all says substance use. So occasional alcohol at the beginning and then none, And then on a number of occasions, we can see actually the writing carries straight through to what appearing to be the address above the substance use. Amber, yes. You have talked about your whitey stuff use as a teenager. Amber, yes. For the time when you ceased taking whitey stuff as a teenager, did you ever take whitey stuff again? Amber, no, one time I did. And Justice Nicol, just a minute, one time you did? Amber, yes, many years after the divorce. I took it once, quite literally, halfway through. Ms. Waswell, this is after 2016. Amber, many years. And Justice Nicol, let us move on. Yes, let us not talk about St. Amber's whitey stuff issue and her drug abuse and her alcoholism. Let's not talk about that, shall we? But let's talk about Johnny's. That's why we're here. We're here to talk about Johnny's. Ms. Was, I do not think we need to hear about it because this concerns the events up into 2016. Amber, sorry. When you were with Mr. Depp, did you ever take whitey stuff? Amber, no. Did you ever encourage him to take whitey stuff? Amber, absolutely not. Throughout your dealings with Dr. Cowan, did you ever have a problem with self-harm? Amber, never. It was put to you on behalf of Mr. Depp that the scars that were seen, we see the redness on the scars on your outer forearm in a photograph, were the result of self-harm. Do you cut yourself, Amber? Amber, I have never self-harmed. I have never cut myself, ever. You have mentioned having scars on the bottom of your feet. Did you inflict those yourself? Amber, no. And I'm going to add in, because they don't exist. Ms. Waz, you also said in answer to Miss Laws that it was Mr. Depp who would self-harm. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, please? Amber, when I first started seeing Johnny, I asked him about his body. His body is covered in scars and they are deep cuts and burns. And I asked him about it and he told me various stories at various moments in his life where he was in pain and he would not handle it anymore. He said could not handle the pain. His body is full of those scars. I saw him do it to himself or threaten me with it a few times. So can I ask you about those? Can you give us an example of when you saw Mr. Depp self-harm? Amber, many times he would. And Justice Nicol, does this arise at a cross-examination? Ms. Waz, it does, because when Miss Laws was asking about the cigarette burn on the cheek that is seen in the photograph of Australia, Mr. had said that Mr. Depp was in the habit of injuring himself deliberately. And Justice, well, so then Mr. Sherborne got into it. And Justice Nicol, well, Mr. Sherborne, Miss Laws was doing this part of the cross-examination. If it was you who wants to make the submissions, but I only want to hear from one of you. Mr. Sherborne, my lord, I thought it was being suggested that it was in the cross-examination of Mr. Depp. Your lordship is right. And Justice Nicol, Miss Laws, is there something you want to say? Miss Laws, my lord, yes. A little bit less fact of the mark, but yes, I do object. It does not arise from cross-examination. The cross-examination topic related to whether the scars on the arm, the straight scars, we have photograph of. And Justice, I think there was a point that you were putting to Miss Heard about the mark on his cheek, on Mr. Depp's cheek. Miss Laws, that is right. And Justice. And Miss Heard's answer in cross-examination was that it had been self-inflicted by Mr. Depp. Miss Laws, yes, but I did not ask any further questions about it. And Justice, I think that topic has been raised in cross-examination and Miss Was is entitled to come back to it. Miss Laws, very well. Miss Was, in fact, the answer was, my lord, Johnny did it right in front of me. He often did things like that. Anyway, my lord has indicated that I can ask about this. Miss Heard, you said in answer to Miss Laws that there was an occasion in Australia when Mr. Depp put the cigarette out on his face. Was that something that you saw with your own eyes? Amber, I was standing right in front of him. Miss Was, did it appear deliberate or accidental? Amber, it was deliberate. He put it out on his cheek and screamed at me how much he did not feel it because of how much pain he was already in. He was trying to justify taking the drugs. Miss Was, and what drug was he taking at the time? Amber, whitey stuff, MDMA, and he had recently acquired Quaaludes, although I did not see him take the Quaaludes. He just told me. Justice Nicol, let's just keep with the ones you saw, whitey stuff and MDMA. Amber, yes, my lord. Miss was that the only incident when you have seen him self-harm or injure himself deliberately? Amber, no. And Justice Nicol, just a minute. Well, Miss Was, you have that answer. I think that it is legitimate end of that line of re-examination. Miss Was, all right, we have seen the notes from Dr. Cowan, and you have explained to us how they were compiled in your presence. As far as Dr. Kipper or indeed Aaron Baroon, did you ever see them make any notes about you when you were with them in your presence? Amber, never. Was, are you able to say? Justice Nicol, sorry, let's just take this separately. Let us take Dr. Kipper first. Justice Nicol, did you see him make notes in your presence? And your answer was no, is that right? Amber, never. I only saw him in the office a few times. And Justice, Seeing him in an office would not necessarily preclude you seeing him making the notes, but you say you did not see him make the notes. Amber, forgive me, your lordship. What I meant is that he was always there to tend to Johnny, and sometimes we would step aside and speak in private. But it was mostly about in Johnny's care. I was his liaison between his nurses, his doctors, etc. Justice Nicol. All right. Then you're asked about as well Aaron Baroon. I'm going to ask Miss Was to put that question again. Miss Was, as far as Aaron Baroon and your interaction with her, we know that she has made notes about interactions with you. Were they ever made in your presence as far as you know? Amber, never. Are we able to say whether you were the source of the information or you and someone else or someone else altogether? Amber, no, she never told me she made notes. Miss Was, thank you very much indeed. So in terms of I can call it the Kipper arrangement, who was the client as far as Dr. Kipper was concerned? Amber, they all told me that they care about me, but that Johnny was the client and that he was the priority, which I respected. So they're going to another file. Miss Was, now, this is a text from Mr. Depp to Aaron Baroon, and it is dated July 16th, 2016. So after the legal proceedings had started between the two of you, it says, she was such a sweet kid, I wanted to send her to that alternative doctor in Tijuana, but apparently she's gone too far. Still checking, bless her. I love you to pieces. If you can't do the declaration, don't sweat it. More than anything is to clear my name as a fucking abusive shithead. Also, I wonder, since I was a client, ultimately, if you and Debbie are able to at least speak of me, who I really am, and what. I was the one who asked for you to calm her down and keep her under control. Not because she was kicking drugs, it was to take her pressure away from me. The same reason I had hired her shrink, who, by the way, only made her worse. Anyway, there was no one closer to me or us than you and Debbie. I could understand that I was the fucking cunt who was abused both psychologically and physically. Remember my finger? I certainly do. And so, Kipper, it's not like you guys are shrinks. I love you, sweetie. See you soon, XJD. So, in terms of your relationship with Mr. Depp's relationship with Dr. Kipper, Nurse Baroon, and Nurse Lloyd, who was the ultimate client? Amber, Johnny. It has been suggested to you that you have been the perpetrator of DV in the past, and I'm asking about your relationship with Tessia Van Ray. Amber, yes. Can you please go to file 8? We have seen an article that appeared in the newspaper. It's not what I'm going to ask you to look up now, dated June 2016, suggesting that you have been arrested for DV. Do you remember that article? Amber, I do. Which appeared in the press a few days after you obtained a DV restraining order about an event in 2009? Amber, yes. Can I ask you, did you play a part in releasing that information to the media? No, of course not. Miss Was. This is an email from Miss Van Ray to the body of the email reads, in 2009, Amber was wrongly accused for an incident that was misinterpreted and over-sensationalized by two individuals in position. And Justice Nicol, have we not looked at this email body already? Miss Was, we have with Mr. Depp, but since that has been a lot resurrected. Justice Nicol, I have seen the email. Miss Was, all right, let me deal with it more swiftly then. Was there any truth in the suggestion that you assaulted or beat Miss Van Ray ever? Amber, absolutely not. We had nothing but a peaceful and beautiful relationship and a beautiful friendship afterwards. Justice Nicol, I think the answer is no. Yeah? Thank you. Miss Was, I can then turn to Savannah McMillan. You were asked about her, and the suggestion was that you had written a false letter to Homeland Security. So, can I ask you a little bit about your relationship with Savannah McMillan? Because you have two McMillans in this case. First of all, when did you meet Miss McMillan? Amber, around early September 2013. When did you meet Miss McMillan? Amber, she was a PA hired on movie set where I was a leading actor on. Miss Was, where was that? Amber, London. Was, what was her nationality? Amber, she is British. When you met her, how old was she? Amber, I believe she just turned 18. Right, and how'd you guys get on? Amber, instantly I liked her. She reminded me of very, very young me, like a little sister. Miss Was, yes, and the film came to an end. Was there any discussion as to whether you would keep in touch or not? Amber, yes, she needed a place to stay as she just left her parents' home and asked me if I needed help recording any auditions or anything in exchange. She could spend the night in one of my spare bedrooms a few nights a week. Miss Was, where are we talking about? Amber, I believe that was a house in Hampstead? It's still in the UK. Amber, yes. Miss Was, so that was in the UK. When did you leave the UK as far as that film project was concerned? Amber, I had to travel back to the United States to do a 3 or so day reshoot on a film I'd previously shot. I asked, or Savannah said she had never been, except for when she was a baby, and I asked if she could come along. Who does that? Who just says, hey, can I tag along to a new country? Miss Wass, to the United States? Amber, yes, for that 3-day shoot or something. And I said yes. Miss Wass, was that an arrangement? What was the arrangement? Amber, she just came with me to see what LA looked like and to see what different kind of set looked like and hung out. Miss Wass, we know that you employed Kate James as an assistant. She was your assistant at the time, is that correct? Amber, yes, I had a full-time assistant already. Miss Wass, we talking about Kate James? Amber, yeah. Kate James explained in evidence that she did not want to leave her home because she was looking after young children. Amber, exactly. Miss James also told us that she, Miss James, was originally a 1099 employee. Does that mean anything to you? Amber, she went from being a part-time employee to a full-time salary employee, but she went to that position quickly. Miss Wass, the jargon she used was that 1099 was part-time and W-2 employee when she was paid benefits and the like. Amber, yes, full salary. She told the court that she received payment through a firm called Paychecks. Amber, I guess that's the billing company. Miss Wass, what I want to ask you, please, is your employment of Miss James. How was that done? How did she receive her salary? Did you give her a check every week? How was it done? Amber, no, I had nothing to do with her payment in that sense. And Justice Nickel, just a minute. Yes, I had nothing to do with her payments. Amber, pardon? And Justice, I was simply repeating what I had understood you to say. I had nothing to do with her payments. Amber, physically making sure she received payments as an employee. Whether you are a 1099 or a W-2, you have to be hired formally, and that formal hiring requires a certain amount of employee-employer protections and obligations. Ms. Wass, such as? Amber, you have to have a contract. You have to agree on wages for that amount of contract at work, contractual work, and you get paid through a third party. In my case, through a corp. Actors like me are typically incorporated, so we represent a business and we are paid through our businesses, which are typically handled by a business manager in the employment process. Ms. Wass, is that how Kate James received her wages? Amber, well, yes, it is. Now, we know that you have written a check, or there has been a check written to Miss McMillan. Amber, yes. Can you tell us how that works in relation to any formal employment with the W-2 or the 1099 scheme? Amber, well, it does not. No money I gave Savannah reflected any formal payment arrangements. It was simply to either reimburse her as she would pick up my dry cleaning, groceries for home. She wanted to travel with me. Often it was an incumbent on her. She would take it upon herself to get the groceries, set them up, fill the tank up with the rental car we were using, and she needed money to spend on that because she couldn't work, although I did try to see if there was any way I could get her hired in the United States. I quickly learned that it was impossible, and so she, as a photographer, an aspiring photographer, said it was worth it for her to follow me taking pictures. Ms. Wass, in terms of formality of the money that you did give her, was there any reference to any hourly rate or weekly rate or anything along those lines? Amber, no, there was no rate. It was as needed, especially if she needed extra money because she could not work. Ms. Wass, so we have seen emails where she uses an email address as Miss Heard's assistant or something along those lines. How did that come about? How did it come about? Amber, because she was my said assistant. She would often have to, that was in other time zones like the UK. So it would be long periods of time in which Kate was asleep and important emails were coming in from production. She updated call times and the following day's worth of work, and she needed to be able to answer that email to update my times. She started doing that, and if she could not, sometimes my sister or some of my other friends would, just because I needed the help. Oh, wow. Ms. Wass, and how many people would use that email address or that route as a domain name? Amber, people who were helping me out, my sister, my best friends at the time, depending on the amount of help I had or whether Kate was working at that time or if she was in good mental state at that time. Sometimes she needed big breaks. Justice Nickel, do I understand that it's not just Miss McMillan who used the domain name of some reference to assistant of AH? Amber, exactly. Ms. Wass, but the other people did as well. Oh, sorry, it's injustice, but that other people did as well. Amber, exactly. Ms. Wass, now, did a time come when you traveled abroad again and Miss McMillan was with you? Amber, yes. In those circumstances, what was the relationship with Miss McMillan? She quickly became one of my closest friends. So, sorry, it's my fault. I've asked this unclearly. Did she work about for you on any other basis, or did she work for a third party when you were traveling abroad? Amber, she's primarily focused on assisting me. She was hired by production to do so on the other jobs like Aquaman or Justice League, which was also shot in the UK, Aquaman in Australia. Miss Wass, in Australia, you shot a film and Miss McMillan was your assistant. Who paid Miss McMillan's wages? Wait a minute, how was Savannah able to work in Australia? She would need a work visa anyway. Amber, the production company. You mentioned a film in London. Amber, Danish Girl to be one, London Fields another. Both were paying, not me. And I think a time came when Miss McMillan got into difficulty with Homeland Security. Amber, yep. Can I ask you to go to file, Yep, everyone's fighting it, Miss Wasp. Perhaps we can go through the letter and I can just ask you some questions about it. This is signed by you. Do you agree? Amber, yes, it is. Miss Wasp, did you compose the letter? Amber, I did not. Miss Wasp, can you say who did compose this letter? Amber, Savannah. Did you read the letter? And Justice Nichols, sorry, Savannah? Amber, Savannah composed the letter. Miss Wasp, wouldn't we be talking about Miss McMillan on this subject? We were talking about Savannah McMillan, are we not? Amber, yes, it's unfortunate, I know. Miss Wasp, it might be easier if I refer to her by her first name for the purpose of this part of the case. So Savannah wrote this letter. Amber, yes. Can I just take you to it? It's dated September 28th, 2014. It says, to whom it may concern, my name is Amber Heard. I'm a proud, lawful American citizen. Was that your choice of words? Amber, nope. I'm writing this letter in response to a fraudulent report made against my English friend, Savannah McMillan. It has come to my awareness that while spending time visiting me in the United States, someone made a false claim against her, stating without any proof of corroboration she was unlawfully working for me. Again, what was your choice? Was that your choice of words in that? Amber, those are not mine exactly. Injustice. Miss Wass, you have established that your letter was composed by Savannah. That is for you, but I am not sure whether it's necessary to go through each phrase. Miss Wass, let me ask you this, Miss Heard. How did it come to your attention that Savannah was a subject of an interest of the part of the Homeland Security? Amber, we are flying into the United States and we go through the normal customs and immigration line that they pull Savannah aside and they do not explain why. And they detain her for what I think over 7 hours and they question. I find out when I see her, it is in early hours perhaps, and I pick her up or she arrives at the hotel. I cannot recall. And she is in tears saying she had received a call from a woman and they could not say who. And, oh my God. And Justice Nichols, just a moment. You have explained that you were coming into the United States. Savannah was arrested or detained for a period. And it's how you came to learn that she was a person who was of interest of Homeland Security, Amber, and that they also had received a tip. So they received a tip that she was unlawfully working. Amber, yes, which is what Kate had warned me might happen about a month prior. Oh, so now we're blaming Kate James for the Homeland Security thing. And honestly, if she was working illegally in the United States, Kate did the right thing, in my own humble opinion. Fuck you, Amber. Fuck. Anyway, Miss Wass, that is Kate who? Amber, Kate James said it would be awful if it happened. Miss Wass, as far as we're concerned, was Savannah McMillan unlawfully working for you? Amber, no. You have told us that this is not your choice of words, this document. Did you have any hesitation about signing the information, putting your name to this information? Amber, no. Well, I might have chosen different words. I thought it reflected the truth, so I did. Miss Wass, all right, my lord. I'm going to go to a different topic, which might be easier to start in the morning. Okay, so they start in the morning. So that's it. That's all. Amber blaming everyone but her goddamn self. You know, I wish I had someone I could blame all my issues on except for myself. I wish I could. Anyway, wouldn't it be nice? So that's it of day 12. We will continue on with day 13. It's just a little bit more to go with her on the stand in the UK, which she was only a witness for. I love you. I appreciate you. Have a good day.